Many people wouldn't think of guacamole as a sauce, but it's actually a great way to add flavor, richness, and healthy fats. So the fats contained in whole plant foods such as avocados, olives, nuts, seeds are all very healthy fats. So nothing you have to worry about restricting in your diet. Although if you are worried about calories, then you'd want to be mindful of the portion. But first I'm going to start by taking some minced garlic, and I just have 1 clove of minced garlic here. And a traditional way of doing this, which is not exactly what I'm doing now, but you could try at home, would be to take the garlic and mash it with your knife with some salt on the cutting board. I'm just going to mix it together. We have it nice and prepped here. The other way that you could do this is, besides using a glass mixing bowl, you could use a molcajete, or you could use a mortar and pestle, which is, if you're not familiar with those, it's a bowl with a pounding device that you can use to mash up anything in there. So I'm going to use things that most people have in their kitchen, which is just a bowl, some forks for mashing, but there's lots of ways that you can do this. It doesn't have to be this exact way. So I'm going to mix up that garlic and salt. It's going to help convey that garlic flavor throughout the dish. All right, now I'm going to mash up my avocados. So I'm in California. Many people in California are very familiar with how to cut up avocados. When I teach cooking classes elsewhere, not so much. So first we want to check ripeness by just pushing on the end near where the stem was, and it should have a little bit of give, but should bounce back. If your finger goes right in, it's probably overripe. If it doesn't give at all, it's probably not quite there. You really do want to have a ripe avocado when you do guacamole, because it's just really hard to mash up or, mask the fact that it's underripe. But if it's a little underripe, you can get away with putting a few slices in a sandwich or something else. But otherwise, we'll joke, wait 5 minutes, maybe it will be ripe. You can also ripen your avocados pretty much overnight by putting them in a paper bag with an apple. And some of the gases that are released from the apple will help to ripen fruit. So you can also ripen bananas that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my chef's knife and just cut straight down through the stem end. And I don't have to worry about cutting my hand because there's a pit there that's going to stop my knife. And then I'm just going to roll the avocado around, keeping the knife right up against the pit. And set the knife down, and then just twist the 2 halves, and then you have your halved avocado. Then you can take any kind of spoon and you can scoop it out. If you wanted this to be to look diced and not be all mashed up, you could actually take a knife. Let me just go ahead and show you. So you can take a knife, and you probably want to use a butter knife and not a sharp knife like I'm doing, because if you're not as comfortable doing this, you could poke through the avocado. But you can just make some slices about 1/4 of an inch apart, or whatever size cubes you want, and then turn it 90 degrees and do it the other way. And again, this is only if you want it to be diced up. And then you can take a spoon, I'd say, teaspoon, tablespoon, whatever you have handy, and then you can scrape it along the inside edge of the skin, and it's just going to let you release all that avocado. That's one of the easiest ways to get that out. So again, if you want it all diced up, you could do it that way. I'm going to mash this, so I'm not going to spend quite that much time on the other ones. So to get the pit out of the avocado, there's a few ways to do that. You can, I would say, always cutting away from you. You can just kind of thwack it into the pit, and then if you twist, it will loosen the pit. What you don't want to do now is you don't want to grab it and pull away, because our muscle reflex would be to go back toward the knife as soon as it releases. So you want to use something else. So you can use a spoon, your whatever you have handy, and kind of hit the pit off of your knife. And you can save this and put it on top of the finished guacamole, and then cover it with plastic wrap, excluding all the air from the top of it, and it will help limit the browning. So you could do it a couple of hours ahead of time and not have it all turn brown on top. All right, so I'm just going to scoop this other one out here. It's a beautiful ripe avocado. It's just perfect. And my world, always make more guacamole than you think you need because you'll always run out. So I'm just going to do the same thing with this other avocado quickly. All right, and I'm just going to scoop this one out. This one's not quite as ripe, so it's a little bit firmer when I push through, but it's definitely, it's kind of just barely ripe enough to do this. I'll scoop that out. Going to get our pit out again. Oop. See, that's how you know it's not ripe. The pit's also hard to get out of it, so twist it. So that one actually broke in half, and so there's a lot of adapting when you're cooking, right? So we're just gonna scoop it out and we'll pull it out afterwards. So good tips for when things don't go perfectly for you at home, because they never do for the most part in the kitchen. So I'll let you in on a little tip. Even professional chefs have a lot of improvising that they do in the kitchen. And now I'm just gonna do a little mashing with a fork here. So again, if you have a mortar and pestle, you can pound it up with the pestle, but do this, and it's really easy to mash the ripe avocado, and it's a little bit harder to do the other one, but it takes a little bit more muscle here. I don't think it really counts as a workout though. You probably still have to do that if you're doing an overall healthy lifestyle here. Don't forget the exercise. All right. And it's also going to get a little bit more mashed up when we stir in our other ingredients, so you don't have to get it all perfect right at this point. And actually, for very traditional guacamole, you could add just the chili and cilantro that I'm going to add and season with lime and salt, and that could be it. I'm making it a little bit more interesting, making it with a few more vegetables just to show you that there are some variations, but you don't actually have to include all these ingredients to make a guacamole. Okay, all right, so it's mashed up pretty well. There's a few little chunks in there. And now I'm going to add the jalapeno. It's minced up. Again, add just a little bit if you don't like spice, add a lot if you really like spice. A couple of things that you can have or not have in guacamole are a little bit of ground cumin. That's actually pretty common, although it's not essential. And then ground coriander. That's not as often included. And then I'm going to add cilantro. I'll do it the traditional way, and then I'll add in the tomato and right in there. Okay, so I'm going to juice our limes. And it usually takes a little bit more lime than you think it's going to take. If you feel like your guacamole is kind of bland, then I'd encourage you to add more lime until it's, you know that you're getting a really good kick of lime, and then season with salt. I have a couple limes out here. I usually end up using about 1.5 limes in this amount of guacamole. Take a couple pinches of salt. And even though, again, it looks like I'm adding a fair amount of salt, you're going to have a small portion of this, so you're not going to be getting much of that, and it really does help to bring out the flavor of the dish. So. Okay. Taste it here. It's actually perfect, which is very lucky. Not always that lucky, usually I have to adjust. But again, if I was going to add anything else, I'd probably start with lime and then add a little salt afterward. Okay, and then just to give it some more color, you know, eating our rainbow of colors here, we're going to put in a little bit of small diced tomato, small diced onion, stir that up. That's going to be our finished guacamole. You probably want to do another quick taste, just make sure it's still seasoned the way you like. I know there was plenty of seasoning, so I'm not going to do that right now, but until you get really used to how much salt and acid it requires in any given recipe, or knowing how much it's going to be diluted when you add more ingredients, you want to, there's not too much tasting unless you run out of what you're making. So it's always good to practice. All right, and so we have our finished guacamole on some beautiful bean and whole grain tacos with some of our other salsas that we've made.